Okay, hello there. We are live. I'm just letting a couple more people in here. Hi, everyone. Your cameras were turned off, so you're going to need to manually turn those on. And your microphones are also muted, just so we don't have a lot of background noise. Lots of people are coming in right now, so I'm just trying to admit them at the same time. So if you don't know where you are, I always say this when we're in the live event, you're at the Indy Senior Living Series event. We moved it to Zoom as of April 2020, unfortunately. But the topic for today is living, dying, and leaving a legacy. Good stuff. And I'm really excited to have some people I would consider good friends on today to talk. I am working on getting the slideshow going and sharing my screen with you so you can view. So bear with me here. Share screen. Julie usually does this, so she's not here. Can everybody see that? Oh, you're muted, so you can't. I can't hear you if you say.
Yes, it's good. It's good.
Okay, good. Thanks. I need Julie here to run this, don't I? Okay. The problem is I can't admit people into the meeting when, oh, wait, here. I think I can. I'm going to do one thing real quick. I just want to make sure. Okay. I think it's telling me when people are trying to come in. Okay. Now I'm not able to share. Okay, share screen. Here we go. All right. Can y'all see that, Michelle?
Yes, looks good.
Okay. Does it look like a slideshow, or does it look like?
It looks like your laptop.
Okay.
You see the side panels too.
So I need to start the slideshow, is what you're saying. Yeah.
I think so. There you go. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hopefully it'll tell me when somebody is trying to get in. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, yes, it does here. I'm admitting everyone in here. We are, first of all, we're live. So we're streaming this on Facebook and YouTube. So I just want to let you know that if your camera's on, don't like pick your nose or anything. But I think most of you have been at this event or, several times. And so you kind of know the drill. I have been seeing, since we started doing it on Zoom, I have been seeing some newbies, which is great. We love that. Michelle, do you mind checking YouTube to make sure that we are streaming? Okay. But we could not do this event without our loyal sponsors who some have actually been sponsoring since the beginning. Actually, one of our panelists, Jeff Stinson, has been sponsoring since the beginning, and he really upped his sponsorship because he was able to connect with so many people from this event or from the advertising of this event over the years. So but here are sponsors. These are all people that I've worked with in the past. We've either shared clients. They've done work for me, either personal or with some real estate clients. And I trust them all to treat you with the utmost professionalism and responsibility. So they're great companies, all of them, and I really appreciate your support. And we're going to get a chance in just a second to introduce everybody. In fact, let's do that now, and then I'll go through the housekeeping. So we have the screen here. You can see the PowerPoint here. Let's just go. We'll start at the top with Jeff, and then we'll kind of go down the line here. You can see Jeff, Westminster Village, security title. The only ones that I want to wait, let me see here. I'm reading. Let's go. First, we'll go Sycamore Springs, and then, or I'm sorry, Sycamore Reserve, and then we'll start with Jeff, because Sycamore and assisted living locators are kind of our highlight sponsors today, and I want to give them just a few extra minutes to go into further depth about their business, about their company. So for now, we're going to start with Sycamore, and then we'll go to Stinson, and then we'll work our way down the line here. And Dave and Lisa, I'll have you guys go at the end after the last person here. So if you're here, Sycamore Reserve here, Teresa?
Right here.
Okay, good.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Teresa Huffman. I'm the executive director here at Sycamore Reserve. You usually see Sean's beautiful face, but she's not here today, so I'm filling in, so good.
Good, welcome. Do you want to go into a little bit further depth about maybe Sycamore, like what Sycamore Reserve is, and any kind of special things going on or anything?
Excuse me. Well, we are, I'm pleased to say that amongst many things, we are actually a family-owned, private, independent senior living community here in the Indianapolis area, in the Castleton area. So that is kind of a refreshing thing. After being in the industry for about 15 years, it's nice to have that, not only just have that family environment, but that family type of support and network that we have here at the community, not just from our ownership, but right here in the community itself. So we're just a beautiful resort style senior living community, 97 apartments here at the community. We have 14 different floor plans to choose from. We're sure to find something that fits everybody's preferences there. But, we have a lot of fun and exciting things that we do here every day for our residents. Everything from internal things that we do, wellness programs, wonderful entertainment and things that we offer our residents, as well as having a beautiful heated saltwater pool that our residents love and enjoy, and do lots of, again, wellness programs, fitness programs, water aerobics, and just, if you just want to go out and just relax and by the pool side, it's yours to enjoy. With a wonderful executive chef, gourmet dining. We invite anyone to come over and just take a look around, come visit with us, just give us a call. One thing we like to say here at Sycamore Reserve is life's too short. So be active, be healthy, and be happy. Come see us.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Teresa. And it's to meet you.
You too, Lisa. Yes, thank you.
So, okay. So yeah, like I said, each month, because we're not in person, we don't have that sort of resource area at St. Luke's. We're doing intros now just to give some of our sponsors face time, and each month we are going to highlight a couple of them. So Teresa is one, and then at the end we'll do assisted living locators. But we'll get to Jeff, even though you're speaking on the panel. Why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself, and we'll go down to Laura. I don't think Rachel's here, but we'll go through the line here, as you can see on my screen here. I think I'm mastering the share screen thing. All right, Jeff, you're up.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Jeff Stinson. I'm a certified elder law attorney located in the Indianapolis area, working with folks who are in need of long-term care or concerned about protecting assets from the cost of long-term care. And I'm excited to talk to you a bit today about one of my practice areas, which is going to be more along the planning side. But I'm looking forward to it, and stay tuned.
Great. And I know Laura's here. I can see her up in my top left corner. Go ahead, Laura. Oh, you're muted. There. I think I unmuted you. Well, maybe not. I did not.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Roman. I'm the Director of Marketing at Westminster Village North. We are a continuing care retirement community, meaning we have independent living homes and apartments. We have assisted living, memory care in 2 different levels, as well as short-term rehabilitation and long-term care. We are a not-for-profit organization. We are an independent organization, meaning our decisions are made right here about every individual who might be interested in moving into our community. We are not able to do on-site tours right now. I have perfected the FaceTime tour. And so if you are interested in a little tour or learning more, I invite you to contact me. Thank you.
That's great. You've perfected the FaceTime tour. I have to go to my PowerPoint to see who's up next. I don't think is Rachel here from Security Title? I don't think she is. Okay, Michelle just texted me and confirmed we're live on Facebook and YouTube. Don't pick your noses, anybody. Anything you don't want live, because it's going to live there forever and ever and ever, because we also post it on our website and social media outlets afterward for people to watch if they miss. So let's go down quickly. Michelle, you can introduce yourself and Downsizing Indy.
Hi, I'm Michelle Shank with Downsizing Indy. We help people that are downsizing, and we can help with sorting, decluttering, packing, moving, whatever your needs are. So give us a call. We're welcome to help without whatever your needs are when you're moving to a lower, no maintenance living. So
there you go. I put Michelle on the spot. I didn't tell her that I was gonna have her in. We haven't had to do that elevator speech in a while, right?
I know.
Okay, Misty with Folklore. I know she's here because she's one of our sponsors. Are you there, Misty?
Yes, hi. I'm Misty Pfanz with Folklore Productions. I'll be one of the panelists today, so I'll be talking about legacy videos and creating a legacy video to pass down to people in your family.
That's awesome. I know that Stacy is not here from Clear Captions, but Sarah is from BrightStar Care. Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, good morning. I'm Sarah McCord with BrightStar Care. We do in-home care. Our goal is to keep you as independent and safe and comfortable at home for as long as you can be. And we will come in and assist with that. I did put my information over in the chat box on how to contact me, so feel free to check that out. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to talk with you.
Yeah, I asked the sponsors to go ahead and start putting their stuff over here in the chat box, so you can, if you're real tech savvy, you can take a screenshot of that. I think you're able to copy and paste, or just take out a pen and paper and write down their information. And some people have put their links to their websites or their emails and phone numbers. So if you have specific questions, you can take a look there. And if you're on the phone, which we're going to go over this again during housekeeping, this intro thing is just kind of the first couple of minutes while everybody's still trying to figure out their screen and Zoom and everything. So let's see. I don't think anybody's here from Marquette, right? Or JDog. Let's go up to Heritage Woods. Is anybody here from Heritage? I didn't see anybody, but I don't want to miss you, so speak up if you are. Eagledale Florist is not here. Senior Guide is not here, but I know Anthology is here because I saw Carol come in real early.
Good morning.
Hi.
I'm Carol Houghton with Anthology of Meridian Hills. We're located on the corner of 86 and Meridian Street. This month, we are celebrating Hydration Month at Anthology and are giving away these stainless hydro flasks. So if you are interested in receiving one of these, they're really beautiful, sturdy, and insulated. I've put my information in the chat box, so give us a call, ask for the sales department, and we will give you one of these beautiful flasks.
Who does not love a good hydro flask?
I know. Thank you,
Awesome.
Lisa.
Yeah. Okay. Now another featured sponsor we have is Dave and Lisa with Assisted Living Locators. So I don't know who's going to do the speaking, if both of you are, but just jump on in.
We'll jump in there. Thanks, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dave Holder. I'm the owner of Assisted Living Locators of North Indy, your local senior living advisor. If you are looking to make the transition to independent assisted, or a loved one is going into memory care, we are your no-cost service to help you understand all of your options, narrow down your choices. We partner with you throughout the process, so we stay with you, making recommendations, going on tours virtually and in person, and helping you understand all your costs and options that are out there. We'd love to help you make this next important decision. Lisa?
Thanks, Dave. So I'm also with Assisted Living Locators. Dave is on the north side of Indianapolis, and I cover the south side, which goes from Danville over to Greenfield and down to Franklin. So it's a pretty good size territory. To dovetail on what Dave was saying, we really enjoy helping seniors. So that's our passion. And in order to get to the right place, we want to spend time with them. We'll do a very detailed intake to understand a family's financial situation, their medical situation, and, specifically, geographically speaking, where they want to be. And then we try to take away all of that ambiguity of there's many great choices, but to narrow it down to the best fit. So we'll put 2 or 3 options in front of you, and then collaborate to schedule tours. We love partnering with the communities. We love working with the various people that are representing each community and trying to get the family to the right decision. It's often overwhelming and a lot of times difficult. So the one thing that I do encourage is, as much as possible, to plan ahead. It's always great if you can be having kind of a timeline and a trajectory for your transition, so that you're not responding to a crisis in order to make that transition into senior living, but planning ahead so it's the most ideal scenario. Sometimes that can't be avoided, but we really love to work with folks to plan, and then it becomes a real positive transition. So we just love working with seniors, and we're grateful to be with everyone here today. Thank you, Lisa. And feel free to give us a call. I'll type my information in. I know Dave will do the same. And just a reminder that it is no cost. So, there's no obligation, but certainly feel free to call. And the other one quick thing I wanted to mention is that if senior living isn't the right step at this point, we really work to make really solid referrals, whether it's to in-home care or to an attorney or any other myriad of senior services. We really want to partner with service providers around Indianapolis.
That's great. Thank you. And I did confirm, says people are waiting. I'm trying to admit some people here. I did confirm we're live on Facebook. If you're super duper tech savvy, which I would be so impressed if you are, and you feel like going to Facebook or YouTube and sharing this video, I'd love it. We already have some people on there watching, so that's great. I'm going to flip to our next screen, which is just some housekeeping rules. My dogs are fighting in the background. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to kick them out here if they're not quiet. Okay, so we talked about Smile, you're on camera. This is being broadcast live. I just wanna make sure I start everyone automatically with your cameras and mics turned off. So if you want your face on, you can have your face on. If you don't, you can absolutely just turn that microphone and or camera off. And when it's time for questions, you can either type your question into the chat box or raise your hand and wave at me or whatever, and we'll get to you. If you're on the phone, you push *6 from your phone. I think we figured that out in one of the first meetings. Push *6 to, it will alert me that you have your hand raised and you want to ask a question, so I can unmute you then. We talked about our sponsors. Again, I could not make this happen without them. And I highly recommend checking out all of their companies for, a variety of needs related to seniors. So, sorry, I have to break up my dogs. What else do we have? Team, I introduced Michelle. I could not do this. I really couldn't do this without Michelle or Julie. They do a lot. Julie does a lot of the back end stuff for us. She helped update this PowerPoint, for instance. And typically she would be sharing her screen and this PowerPoint, which is why I'm sort of fumbling through it. So we do have prizes for feedback. I put the link into the feedback form in the chat, but I realized later that it only went to people who were in the waiting room. So I'm going to post the link to the feedback form again in the chat box. You can click on it and it will open in a separate window, and you can fill out that form and be entered to win a $25 gift card. If you are on the phone, we'll give you a call. And so you still will be entered into that drawing. So you're not going to be missing out if you are on the call. What else? Tell others about this event. I know it's not ideal being online. I have to hold on. I have to shut my door. My dogs. Okay, I'm back. Tell others about the event, either online, share the Facebook post. You can host a watch party. I think I've done that once with my church. But we want to help educate Indianapolis area seniors all over. And this is a monthly event. We plan to do it online now. It seems like for the remainder of the year and potentially even into 2021. We don't know. I don't think anybody knows what's happening from one day to the next. So we're planning as best we can and doing the best we can. And I appreciate you guys showing up and participating. So that's it. Now on to our topic, living, dying, and leaving a legacy. It sounds like a really fun discussion, right? All right, I'm going to stop sharing this now. We've got our panelists, Jeff Stinson. You guys, can you unmute your microphones? Jeff Stinson, Misty Pfanz, and Kate Horrigan. I think their information was in the packet that you received, which was in the e-newsletter that you got Julie sent out. Okay, I see Lisa's. And if you did not receive that packet, I posted it in the group chat. It's a few messages up. Let me see if I can post that again. Yeah, there you go. So I posted the link to the handout that we had. I don't think you're really missing out because we're doing this panel a little bit differently. In the past, we've asked a question and given the panelists just open mic to answer how they will. But I think we structured some questions to each specific panelist this time because we have such a wonderful variety of people and panelists on today. So we're going to start with one panelist and we have some specific questions to ask them. And then we'll go to the next and then the next. Again, if you have questions, either type it in the chat box here. If you're watching online, you can type it in the comments. I'm watching my Facebook page here. Or if you're, I think over in the chat box, there's a space where you can click to raise your hand, or there's some automatic messaging things there. So I'm going to start with Kate, if that's all right. You want to go first? Okay, good.
Good morning.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kate Horrigan, and I am a family advisor at Indiana Funeral Care. So I help people get their plans together. You can just make your plans, or you can make your plans and fund them. And there's some benefits to doing both. So I'll be happy to talk about that today. I don't know if you want to talk about the questions first, Lisa, or?
Yeah, let's go through. I've got a list of the questions here, and I know you received them in advance. So we'll talk about, we'll do the pre-planning questions. And again, just this is really informal. If you guys have questions, either like unmute or wave at me or type your questions in the chat box there. So let's go to that first question. Why would somebody want to pre-plan their funeral? Sounds pretty morbid, huh?
It does present some difficulty for some people to think about it, but as we all know, it is going to happen to everyone. So we like to emphasize that there's, a couple of main reasons. Emotional and financial reasons are really the primary times to do this. Emotionally, it's as an individual, you get what you want as far as services. And so you can set down everything that you want and tell your family about it and ensure that they follow through with that. It requires a little bit of a second step, but we can do that. And then it also creates less worry for them when either a death is imminent or, there's a surprise, that happens and death is unexpected. It makes that time period emotionally much less difficult for those who are left behind. And financially, most funeral homes do require that payment be made at the time of services. And so planning ahead gives you the benefit of making payments over time, as opposed to coming up with a rather large chunk of money at a time that's already kind of difficult. So you get the option of spreading the payments out. And secondly, when you plan ahead and prepay for it, you lock in today's price. So the average funeral, and the funeral costs increase about 4 to 5% every year. So if we can lock in the cost of 2020, you'll be much better off if the death doesn't occur for 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. So that really makes things a lot easier on everyone involved. So those are the two main reasons why you would want to pre-plan.
I have on this, you kind of touched on this. What are the advantages of having a prepaid funeral and lessening the bereavement burden on ones? I mean,
sure. If you've been through planning a funeral for someone, you know that there are just so many decisions that have to be made. Answering questions that are needed for the death certificate. So it's like the mother's maiden name, where the deceased was born, what was their highest level of education. And if you don't know those things right off the bat, it's a lot of research might need to go into it, like finding a birth certificate or something along those lines to get the answers to those questions. They say there's over 75 decisions that have to be made, whether it's, what type of service to have, time and date to take place, that the services take place. If there's going to be a viewing, if there's not going to be a viewing, if, what is the deceased going to wear, just lots of little minor details. And then not to mention, you might have family coming in from out of town. Where are they going to stay? How are they going to have, how are they going to be fed? What are we going to do? So it's if nothing's pre-planned, it's kind of like a rush to have, a big event. And it's a time when everybody's really, sad and emotional. And so it's hard to make good decisions at that point. The other statistic that's out there is that if the funeral hasn't been planned in advance, typically the family spends about 30% more than that would have been planned had it happened, had the planning taken place before the death occurred. So there's the emotional factor of not wanting to cut back on anything because you've just lost a loved one. So we try hard to educate people up front about these benefits and how they can make a really beautiful ceremony and have it captured so that their family has a lot less to worry about when the time comes.
That's really interesting what you said about if you're pre-plan opposed to planning it once the loved one passed, the cost that you spend more. And do you think that's because of the emotional state that people are in, and they feel like they want to, give their loved one the best, or
exactly. They, it's hard to. Well, it's easy to justify, buying that next level of casket or next level of urn when it's the last thing you can do for mom or dad or your brother or sister. So whether it fits in your budget or not, it's still something that people, tend to maybe even overspend at that time. And when they come back, maybe for, another pre-planning session afterwards, because they decided they're going to get their plans put in place because they don't want their family to go through what they had to go through. They oftentimes say, wow, I really shouldn't have far. But the emotions out of it, and, you try not to make anyone feel bad about it, but, they do learn a lesson.
We have a really good question from BJ Walker in the chat box. It says, what happens if the company dissolves and you have paid, not necessarily, she's saying not necessarily your company, but any funeral.
So there's actually a federal law that requires that any prepaid funeral funds go into a trust of some sort. So we use a company that's called Forethought Life Insurance Company, and they have a product that is very much for prepaid funerals. And the money will go into an irrevocable trust that's tied to your individual Social Security number. That money is totally separate from Indiana Funeral Care, any other funeral home that you might work with, and no one can touch it until the death occurs. So at the time of death, we would contact the company. They would release the funds to us when we show them a death certificate. So the benefits of that are that you, should something happen to our individual funeral home or whatever one you're associated with, you can very easily transfer those funds to another funeral home. And in the same light, if you were to move to another city where it's not practical for a company in Indianapolis to take care of you, you can transfer those funds there as well. So your money's very safe and secure. This law was passed in the late 70s, and because of the fact that funeral homes would go under, and the funds that were set aside for pre-planning were not available to the individuals who had given them the money. So.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I know that came up a couple of years ago when you guys were on the panel too. So hopefully that answered your question, BJ. If you want to give me a thumbs up or something, or if you have any follow-up questions, it looks like you're pretty savvy. You can type it in the chat there. So good. So the next question on your list of questions is, what are your thoughts about cremation versus casket? I know that you and I have talked about this before, and you had some insightful wisdom to impart.
Yeah, it is a good question, and cremation has definitely become more popular. In 2016 was the first time in the United States that there were more cremations that took place as opposed to casketed burials. So the trends are changing and going towards cremation. I think the most important factor when you're thinking about this is really what's going to create a meaningful opportunity for the loved ones to grieve and to get closure, because that's really the important part of having a funeral and the services is having that closure. For some people, if they don't get to see the individual, they find it hard to have that closure. So that's a consideration. Cost is a big consideration. Typically, cremation is less expensive, just mainly because you don't have the same expenses in terms of services at the funeral home, as well as you may or may not have expenses at a cemetery, because not everyone has the remains buried or placed in a cemetery. It's really a matter of personal preference. Some people, people joke to me that they're afraid they're going to feel it when they get cremated. And it's like, no, you won't. You will not feel the heat of the retort, the crematorium. But other people, just they don't like the idea of being buried underground. So, it's a lot of personal preference, and with some, there's also religious factors that play into it as well. We present some options to allow for cremation as well as closure. One of those options is to have more of the traditional viewing or visitation wake service, and then following that, the cremation occurs. So the deceased would be in a rental casket. It's a casket shell that has an interior that comes out every time we use it. And you have the more traditional viewing and visitation, and then the cremation takes place after all that's over. And then the family decides what to do with the remains after that, whether it's buried in a cemetery or scattering, whatever they choose to do. Another option we offer is what we call a cremation with final goodbye. And this is an option that is, it's a brief opportunity for a small number of people, immediate family typically, or very close friends, but we kind of limit it to about 8 to 10 people to just see their loved one before the cremation takes place. And the loved one isn't embalmed. They look good, but they look kind of like they would if they had just passed away in their hospital bed. So, but it does provide that closure and a chance for people to see an individual prior to the cremation taking place. So there are some ways to kind of have the best of everything. So, we're happy at Indiana Funeral Care that we can provide a lot of flexibility to make sure we meet the family's needs for, what works best and what to provide them with the opportunity for healthy grieving.
Yeah, I think that when we talked a few years ago, when we initially met, Kate,
Yeah.
One of the things that stuck out to me about what you said was that it's more the funeral or the viewing or the wake or whatever you call it is more for the grieving people, the family members and loved ones that are left behind, more than the person. I just remember some people close in my life are like, I just want to be cremated and spread on somewhere, and not thinking about the people who are left behind, giving them the opportunity to properly grieve. And if all that's pre-planned and it's done, I feel like that just leaves a lot of space for the loved ones to grieve how they will.
Yeah, it is. It definitely makes it so much easier. So it's something to certainly consider. Even if you don't use us, I would strongly encourage everyone to get some plans in place and share them with your family. One last little piece is if you've got cemetery property, that doesn't mean everything's planned. You have a final place, but it doesn't mean it's all planned. I guess I have two. People a lot of times say, well, I've got everything written in my will. And as Jeff would probably be able to tell everyone, usually the will doesn't get read until the ceremony is over. So that's not a good place to have all your wishes written down. So make sure that you share those wishes with your family and have them in a place where they can access them.
So that's a good point. So don't just put it in your will. share the wishes with family members. How? Just like in normal conversation. So, hey, I planned my funeral today.
You know, we actually have what we call planning guides, and I can, you know, I am happy to send one to anyone who is interested in having one. Actually have them propping up my computer. So if you guys can hold on for half a second, I'll show you what it looks like, but I don't want to make anybody dizzy. So.
I think I have my settings on, Kate, so that you can share your screen. Is that what you want to do?
Yeah. Okay, so so it's just this little piece, trying to get it so there's not so much of a glare, but
Yeah, that looks good.
looks backwards to me. Hopefully it's not to you.
Oh, no, it's not backwards.
But we can, you know, it goes through and you can list all your wishes, information that you want to make sure that your family has. Other pieces that are in there are like, you can list financial information, you can list contacts that people who should be contacted at the time of your death. You know, just a lot of things from, you know, big picture, like you want cremation or a casket, or, you know, into little things. I want these hymns played. I want these readings read. I want to be wearing this, you know, I want my glasses on. I don't want my glasses on, all those kind of details. So
it could be as detailed as you want it to be, or you
definitely
can leave things open for families.
Right. And it's something that you would share with your family. It's not something you give to us. It's something that you make sure they're aware of. So
That's good. So Kate, if anyone wants one of her packets, I can actually pay for the postage and mail it out to you if you're here. Oh, it's perfect timing. My lawn people are here. Hopefully you can't hear that. It's just like days of Zoom. Yes. So if anyone attending wants one of Kate's pre-planning packets, is that what you call them, Kate?
yeah, it's just a little booklet.
We'll be happy to mail that from our office for you. Just indicate it in the chat or send me a message, however you communicate with me. I have people message me on Facebook, they text me, they email me, they call. So however is best for you to communicate, just let me know that you'd like one of those. And actually Kate's office is right 2 minutes from my house. It's at 82nd in Allisonville. And don't you have another location?
We have a location in Greenwood now that opened about 2 years ago. And so it's just off Main Street in Greenwood.
Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have someone on today from the South Side. So
okay. So, yeah, the address is 2433 East Main Street. So a little bit east to I-65.
Okay, and then one last question. You kind of touched on the pre-planning, but we did not talk about the last question. Does prepaying a funeral decrease an estate's tax burden, in or any other financial information you have about the pre-planning?
So I would defer to Jeff on the estate tax burden, but my understanding is that it has to be a pretty large estate to make a difference, but I might be totally wrong on that. Pre-planning does help if you're trying to qualify for Medicaid. It's not viewed as an asset. If you're looking to go into long-term nursing home care, pre-planning is a way to spend down some assets to make you more eligible for Medicaid reimbursement for long-term nursing home care. So there are some benefits to pre-planning if you're in that position as well.
Okay, I'm getting requests for those packets. So
okay, good.
Yeah.
We'll follow up afterwards.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I'm just gonna take a screenshot of this so I have your guys' addresses. Okay, is there anything else? I'm looking at the chat. Does anyone have any specific questions for Kate about funeral planning? or pre-planning or cremation or anything on that topic, I'm going to I'm going to open it up for questions at the end too. So type in your questions or raise your hand or jump up and down or star 6 on your phone or something. I'm not seeing any. I don't see any here on Facebook either. Hi, Megan Powell, by the way. Megan's watching. Okay, so we're going to go on to Jeff Stinson, who has been very active with the Indy Senior Living Series since its inception, and I really appreciate that. We have mutual clients together. I have been a client of Jeff's, and I can tell you that he's a good egg. So I don't know for what it's worth, right? Jeff, so you have your questions there. And then also, of course, if you want to add anything, I know you know what you're doing. So why don't you just go ahead and give a quick intro, and then we can work through your questions too. Again, if anyone has questions, type them in the chat, star 6, raise your hand, jump up and down, however you want to get our attention. Go ahead.
Sure. Again, I'm Jeff Stinson. I'm a certified elder law attorney, which means I've been tested and peer reviewed, and I can say I'm a specialist in elder law. My office is in the North Indianapolis area, but I can work throughout the state. I've got clients from way down south in Indiana to way up north, so, and everywhere in between. My primary practice involves helping folks protect their assets from the cost of long-term care. Most are of modest wealth, so they're worried about what happens if we're going to get hit with a $10,000 a month bill. So I help make sure that there's other ways that they can qualify for benefits to help pay for that care through usually the Medicaid or VA pension system. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what I do. I also, as part of that, we do some estate planning, planning for long-term care, but I also work with a lot of folks who are in crisis who say, it's not too late, I'll tell you that. And they say, I need your help, Jeff. We're running out of funds, and we need help paying for this care and protect what little's left. And we can still do some planning with that. I'll also say, I'm going to try to get my phone away from me. My kids are first day of virtual learning, and all of a sudden my daughter just texted me and said she's getting marked absent for not being at school, but she's not supposed to be at school today. She's supposed to be at school tomorrow. So that's a bit of drama that's going on in the house. So I've been distracted here for the first half hour or so. So we get rid of it. Before I get started with my question, I'll piggyback on a couple of things that Kate had mentioned. One of the things, and I apologize if she kind of was going into this a little bit, but no, do not put your funeral planning instructions in your last will and testament, because that will not even come out of a file folder until long after your funeral. So typically, I discourage folks from doing that. Pre-planning is great, and Kate was spot on with anybody that's needing public benefits. First thing I'm going to recommend is they go pre-plan their funeral as part of the planning we do. But the point I wanted to make here, as of I think 2015, folks can create what they call a funeral planning declaration, which is a legal document that appoints your person who's in charge of handling your funeral arrangements. And so what I like about that is that clears any ambiguity of who should be. Maybe you have it prearranged and there's just the little things to do is just get things scheduled and find a time. Or maybe it's a little more than that. It's arranging some of the details. But the one thing about that declaration that I like is it makes it clear who's in charge there. The second thing with that declaration is you can expand that out and put as much detail about your services as you want. For example, I have a client who she wanted her ashes to be dumped out of a biplane over a lake in northern Indiana. We put that in her funeral planning declaration. I had another client who wanted his ashes to be put in his son's garden in his backyard, in his son's backyard. So we can do all sorts of stuff with those and put as much instruction in there as you like. With that said, I know today a lot of the questions are going to involve planning for the future. So, and that's kind of the intent of this seminar. So I'm not going to go into a lot of Medicaid planning or VA pension planning, but if you have questions, feel free to speak up. I think we would have a few minutes to address some of those things. So before I get into the canned or whatever the prearranged here questions, one of the things I wanted to mention when we're talking about planning, I'm so happy to have Misty here today, because what I tell a lot of clients is planning is more than just documents. You know, when you're working with me, we're identifying who's your team that's going to respond to a crisis. And then, yeah, we want to create documents to give them the authority to carry out your instructions. And then you also have to have your instructions, but you also, in your planning, you want to make sure that you're establishing your legacy, which is typically much more than money and stuff. You know, as I said, when you're sitting around the dinner table reminiscing about grandma, you're probably not talking about that $50,000 she left you. You're probably talking about the time that she pitched wiffle balls to you in the backyard, or the trip they took. Those are your legacy. So I'm actually excited to hear more about Misty. So I'm going to not take up so much time so we can give enough time for her here. Lisa, you want me to kind of go through the questions that we sent ahead of time?
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to hear Misty too. I know I've heard you speak a lot, but you have very useful information as well, that some people maybe haven't heard at all, or they just need to hear it again. You know, if you're like me, I'm a little bit of a slow learner sometimes, and you know, maybe something clicks after like the third time I heard it. So yeah, we can go through your questions if you want. You know, you can read them off or I can. It looks like the first one is a will versus a trust, and which one you suggest.
Sure. So yeah, I know that there have been some suggested questions ahead of time, and so I want to address those, but we can certainly address any other questions that folks might have. As far as the difference between a will and a trust, well, let me start with, I often get the, Jeff, I need a trust. And there are reasons to have a trust. And I guess I should step back for a minute and kind of explain what a trust is. A trust is nothing more than a holding tank. You think, oh, there we go. Nothing more than a holding tank. Think of this glass as a trust, and you put stuff in this container. So this container could hold a house. It could hold bank accounts. It could hold stocks, bonds. It could be beneficiary life insurance. It may even be a beneficiary of an IRA. And then the grantor, or the creator of the trust, gives instructions to the trustee on how to use what's in the trust. And they're using it for a beneficiary. So essentially, that's what a trust is. And typically, when somebody says, hey, I've heard about a trust and I think I need a trust, what they're often thinking of, I believe, what they're often thinking of is a revocable living trust for themselves, which is kind of their alter ego. Think of it as Clark Kent and Superman. They're the same person. It's just things are titled a little differently. And why it's their alter egos? Because the living trust is typically the individual is the grantor, they're the trustee, and they're the beneficiary initially. And the reason why they hear about these in the community is people will tell them, well, you have to have one of these to avoid probate. So this is my soapbox. If you're getting a trust, if you want a trust simply because you're wanting to avoid probate, because your understanding is that's going to save money, not necessarily the case. Because even if you have a trust, there's still going to be some administration after your passing. That's going to require some legal counsel to help the trustee out. The fees in a trust administration is going to be less than an estate administration going to court, but you're still got upfront cost in creating that trust. So my pet peeve, if that's the only reason why someone's told you need a trust, you may not need a trust. But there are other reasons you might want a trust in this situation. For example, if you have a lot of stuff, having that one single container makes it real easy to administer. Your next person can just grab that container and take it administer those things that are in the container. Also, you can have everything directed into there. So if you change your mind on who a beneficiary should be, you change it once in the container. You don't have to go to your IRA and change that beneficiary, and your life insurance and change that beneficiary. That's one good reason to have this revocable living trust. Another good reason is if you don't really want things to be public, maybe you have a disgruntled beneficiary, or you might have a creditor that's been bothering you that's going to try to make problems when you pass away. Well, a trust can create barriers, because the difference between a trust and a will, if that's all you need, we're going to go through probate, we got to go to court. A trust can avoid that. One last thing on the trust. There are other reasons to have a trust. You can set up trust for other people. You can set up trust to protect your assets from the cost of long-term care. You can set up trust to protect your beneficiaries from themselves. Maybe you have a disabled beneficiary that can't manage their own money because of some limitations. Or maybe you just have somebody that's not good with money, but you want to leave them an inheritance. Maybe you have minor children. Those are all the reasons to have a trust. So Lisa, I can just kind of go through our list here. That's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the other question that was sent to me ahead of time that I think that the group had some questions about is, what's a power of attorney? How long is it good for? And what happens if you don't have one? So as I mentioned, when we're planning, the first question I'm going to go through with families is, who is your team that you would want to respond in a crisis? And when you identify that team, we're going to give them authority to carry out the instructions, what you want. And that authority is going to be found in different places. If assets are in a trust, that authority is going to come from the trust. If assets are outside of the trust, when you're incapacitated, typically that authority is going to come from a power of attorney. This is you saying, I, Jeff, want Lisa to handle all of my financial transactions. Or it might be, I want Lisa to handle healthcare decision-making on my behalf. That's what a power of attorney would do. It's for things that are in your name or decisions for you that may need to be made by somebody else. If the power of attorney is drafted correctly, it should be durable. And durable means the day you sign it, it's always going to be in effect till the day you pass away. So even if you become incapacitated, the power of attorney is still good. Doesn't mean it quits just because you become incapacitated. Now, with the exception of a couple of powers, a power of attorney is going to end upon death. And that's where it might be the same team, but their authority is going to come from some other place when they pass away.
Please repeat
It may
that.
come from the will, may come from the trust.
Please repeat that about the power of attorney. It dies when the person dies. I get
Yes,
that a lot.
the power of attorney ends when the person giving the authority passes away, with the exception of a couple things. But in general, the power of attorney can't pay bills using the power anymore. They can't manage investments. They can't really do much of anything from a financial standpoint. So it ends upon death. And when your team needs to manage your final affair, wrap up your final affairs, they got to get that authority from another place, which is either through your will or could be through a trust. That's where that authority comes from. So it might be the same person. They're just going to have a different, always describe it. If we put their title on their shirt, they might have trustee, they might have executor, they might have power of attorney, they might have several things on their shirt. Might be the same folks, but their authority is going to come from a different place. And the last part of that question, if you don't have a power of attorney, or let me even go back bigger, if you don't plan, well, somebody else is going to do that planning for you. And that somebody else is a combination of your legislators who've gotten together and have created a default plan for you. So your plan is going to be what the consensus of a bunch of politicians come up with. And to take it a step further, we're also going to probably need to get a court involved to have you appointed a guardian. So now all of a sudden, your team isn't really independently acting on your behalf. They're going to have to do everything with the consent of a judge. And that may not be what you want. So that's why I encourage folks to pre-plan early. Next question, I kind of have already identified this, the difference between a power of attorney, a trustee, and executor. Those are terms that are assigned to folks that handle typically finances on your behalf. It's just that their authority and maybe even the time period in which they start comes from different places. So your power of attorney is typically going to be somebody that handles finances if you're incapacitated. And those financial assets are typically ones that are in your name. A trustee is going to handle financial assets that are in your trust. Your executor is going to handle financial assets that are in your sole name, that after you pass, you're going through probate, the will names an executor. Now I'm going to throw one more term out there just to confuse you even more. Executor is also synonymous with the term personal representative. Personal representative is kind of a general title assigned to an individual that handles your probate estate. Executor is named under a will, but we generally use personal representative in the state of Indiana for that term. And then the last question, I love this question, and it kind of hits on something Kate was asked earlier, and that is there a strategy to minimize estate taxes? And then we also added and long-term care costs. So let me start with estate taxes. Indiana eliminated their inheritance tax about 7 years ago at this point. So we no longer have an Indiana inheritance tax. There is still a federal estate tax, but the tax exemption for federal estate tax is almost $12 million at this point. So what I mean by that is you can pass $12 million to your beneficiaries without paying tax. And if you're married, the two of you can pass almost 24 million without paying tax. So with that said, are there strategies to minimize that? Yes, but I don't have any clients that are in that. I don't have those wealthy clients. So most of my clients and most individuals anymore, when they're planning, they should be more concerned about protecting assets from the cost of long-term care, because that's the single biggest expense now that can jeopardize your life savings. And so is there strategies to protect assets from the cost of long-term care? Yes. In the planning, we can create protections. We could kind of start creating protections around stuff. Maybe it is a trust. You might hear irrevocable trust. I use that loosely because there's more to it than that, but an irrevocable trust can be established to protect assets. Maybe you have a family farm or your house that you want to protect, or maybe there's just money in general you want to protect. By planning early, we can set up those vehicles to protect those assets. If you're in crisis, you can still protect assets. If you are married, good rule, most often I can protect all the marital assets for the spouse who does not need care. And we do that because most of these public benefit programs have safe harbors they built in where you can park assets that are still yours. It's just because they've been reinvested into something a little different, it's exempt. And even if you're a single individual in a crisis, we can still protect some of those assets. We can protect generally about half of those circumstances by setting up some structure around half of those. You have to use the other half to get through the penalty for waiting too long to do planning, but we can still protect some of it. So that was a mouthful in 10 minutes trying to get all of that in, but I wanted to get all those questions addressed. And I see there's one more question here about dual residency.
I mean, I don't know if that's a thing, but it just came to mind when you were talking about in the state of Indiana and estate taxes.
Yeah. Well, generally, you won't be a resident of you may be spending time in both states, but you're only going to be a resident of one state. Now, if you're spending time in both states, your home state's estate plan is useful, can be used in other states. Every state recognizes the other state's laws around creating different documents. You might see some of your canned online documents you see will require you to notarize things when they don't need to be notarized in Indiana or witnessed. And that's because they're trying to make stuff work in all states. But let me back up a minute. Just because Florida says that a trust has to be witnessed, and Indiana trust, it doesn't have to. Florida recognizes the Indiana trust if you're an Indiana resident there. So you don't have to have two sets of documents necessarily. However, if you're going to spend, if it is like a 6 month and 6 month, it may not hurt to consult with, say the Florida attorney saying, I'm from Indiana, here's my Indiana documents. Just want to double check everything is workable, being that I'm here for, or is there something more that you can do for me in Florida that Indiana doesn't have? That's kind of the idea there. But in general, no, you don't have to say, okay, I have to have a Florida estate plan and I have to have an Indiana estate plan. If you're an Indiana resident and you spend 6 months in Florida, that Indiana estate plan follows you down there.
So the biggest takeaway I'm getting from what you're saying, Jeff, is that each person's plan can be pretty individualized depending on our particular circumstances. And probably the best thing to do would be to have a consultation with you to talk about our specific needs and wants and things like that. If we wanted to do that, how do we do that? And what's the cost? And what does that think? What does a consultation look like?
Sure. So absolutely. I understand, especially in this environment, being a little cost conscious. But and it sounds self-serving, I recommend you get legal counsel involved when you're putting your plan together. You want to make sure that what is in those documents gives the authority and the instruction that you want your team to have. I've seen, and even if you want to use, I'll use LegalZoom. I just put all this together on LegalZoom. You might even have an Indiana attorney take a look at that just to make sure that it meets Indiana formalities. I might look at something like that and say, we're not going to go through whether you have all the authority you need it, but I will look at it and tell you, okay, you missed a line here, or you have witnesses, but the witnesses are your kids, and that doesn't work for a will, and things like that. So as far as working with me, I start all of my relationships with an initial consultation. That process involves spending some time with my intake paralegal on the phone, just getting some initial information. She sends out a questionnaire to you that tells me more about your family, your income, your assets, kind of gives me a big picture of your situation. I then use that information to identify issues even before you step foot in my office, or we have a Zoom meeting, which is the more norm now. So that when we meet, we can concentrate on your goals rather than other issues I come up with. And then at the end of that meeting, I typically can craft a plan to say, this is what I recommend you do. My intake fee is a flat charge of $395, which is always applied towards a project price, which is always a flat fee unless there's something really, really unique about what you want me to do. So that's kind of how we get started. And I do, again, I can't stress the more, if there's anything the least bit unique about your situation, or if you're worried about long-term care costs, definitely need to reach out to some legal counsel to get your planning started.
I like that flat fee, sort of project-based, because a lot of attorneys charge by every 15 minutes, in 15 blocks, so you're constantly, a phone call could be, $250. So
yeah, I really want my clients to leave with a clear understanding of what we put together for them. And I don't want clients to not call because they don't want to be charged. I want open communication. I want them to ask questions, and I feel like the flat fee basis is the best way to establish that. Plus, it helps my bookkeeping too. So
yeah, that's true. So I do have a question here. It didn't show up in the group because it's messaged privately. So the question is, how does long-term care insurance play into this?
Well, that's a great question. When I have clients coming to me well before their need for long-term care, but they're concerned about protecting assets from the cost of long-term care, we're not only going to talk about public benefits. In reality, what we know is over 60% of folks rely on public benefits as their long-term care insurance. But we also know that those rules change constantly. I have a challenging job because there's something new coming down. Well, especially in this pandemic, it's been almost weekly. So to ensure that there's funds there, the best way to do and have the most flexibility, the best way to do that is through long-term care insurance. So if you can afford it, we're going to discuss that. We're also may talk about hybrids of, okay, you have insurance, but let's also, as kind of belt and suspenders, talk about protecting some assets so that we're getting you eligible for public benefits. Sometimes you need both. I've seen plans where the insurance is still not enough to pay for the daily care, and so we've had to get Medicaid involved to make up that difference. So that's not to minimize the impact of long-term care insurance. For folks that can afford it, do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a question or a concern that people have is, what happens when I run out of money? I'm going to run out of money, and long-term care insurance, from what I understand, there are lots of loopholes and lots of different types of insurance, and some cover some things and some don't. So you got to sort of read the fine print. And again, from what I understand, it's not something that's just like the lay person can just take a look at it and be like, oh yeah, I got this. Okay, this is everything I want. And, so it's helpful. Like you said, things are changing so quickly. They were changing before this, 6 months ago. But we can rely on professionals like you to know your industry and to know the changes that are coming or that have already come. And I think for me, that would be one of the most valuable things of using an attorney to help get all that stuff lined up.
Yeah, I don't sell long-term care insurance, but what I can do is kind of walk folks through what to look for in a policy, so that when you're talking to the agent, you kind of walked in with a little education beforehand, so that you're not buying a policy that is never going to help you because it's written in such a way that it's skewed against you and more for the insurance company. So we do that a lot too.
Yeah, and you can be sure that insurance companies have done all of the statistics to make sure that they're not losing money.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, if there are any further questions for Jeff, jump on in there. Again, if you're on your telephone, you can hit *6, and I think somehow it will alert me. You can message on the Facebook live chat or the YouTube stream. You can also message in the comments section. And some of you have figured out that you can message privately just to me, or just to, I don't know if it allows you to message to any of the attendees, but if you want to stay private with your question, you can just type it there in the chat box, raise your hand, jump up and down, or just unmute yourself and speak up. Any more questions for Jeff? We are at 11:15 and this ends at 11:30. And I'm really excited to get into Misty's side of things, because it's a little bit different than what probably most people think about when they're thinking about leaving a legacy and getting their planning lined up. So we're just going to jump in. Again, if you have questions, somehow post it and I will interrupt Misty and ask your question. So you're on.
Hi, so again, Misty Pfanz. I'm the owner of Folklore Productions, and I create legacy videos for seniors. And a lot of people don't know what a legacy video is, so I guess I'll just start with that. A legacy video is a 30-minute movie about your life and the reflections on your life. So just as every individual is different, each video is different. It can include whatever is important to you, but a lot of times it ends up being about your childhood memories, relationships with your parents, meeting a spouse, starting a family, experiences with faith, heartache. You know, it just covers the whole gamut of things that can happen in life. Anything that you want to talk about, we can put in a video, and then we do an interview, and I add in family photos. If you have digital footage, I can add that in, music, so that it's something that people want to sit down and watch more than one time. It's not going to be like this long, drawn out 2-hour rolling footage of your interview. I take it and I edit it so that it's something that's really accessible to younger generation. So that's what a legacy video is. Do you want me just to go through the questions?
Yeah, so we have a list of questions for her. What is a legacy video? Why would somebody want to create this? Jeff touched on something that made me think of something that may or may not be like a good thing to include in the video. But and have you ever had anyone want to like put their plans in their video, or say, you know, my safety deposit box is I mean, that's probably not something that's considered part of a legacy video, but and I know you're going to play a sample of one, right?
Yeah, I have a sample of one. I can play it now.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah, I think you have the abilities to do that.
Okay, here we go. Can you see it?
Yep.
My dad and I were buddies. He died when I was 20, and so I missed him. Was saving my money for a bike. My dad said I couldn't have one until I was 10. And on Christmas, when I was still 9, I got my first bike. And my dad was very emphatic that if anything happened to that bike, I would not get another one. And somebody broke in our garage and stole my bike. And I was heartbroken because I knew I was not going to get another one. But my dad broke down and got me one because it wasn't my fault. It was in the garage where it belonged. We vacationed every year at Lake Tippecanoe. And I remember when I was little, I always wanted to take the boat out by myself. And I wanted to go fishing, and they wouldn't take me fishing with them. I was too much of a wiggle worm. So when they'd get done fishing, my dad would say, now you can go out and fish. Well, I made him bait my hook for me. I wasn't going to do that. And then I'd row out 50, 100 feet from the pier, and I'd fish, and I'd catch a little sunfish about that big around. I'd row back in for Daddy to take it off the hook. And I'd do that 2 or 3 times in an afternoon.
So that's just an idea of the kinds of things that people might want to put in their legacy video, but it can just vary based on your life and the message that you want to leave people.
That is awesome. That was a client of mine and yours, Laura. And okay, so yeah, let's just go down the list here. Why would somebody want to create a legacy video? If you want to talk more about that, and what advice do you have about people who might be hesitant? Oh, we have a comment. Oh, you see it. That's lovely, Misty. So can you speak on those two things? Like why would somebody want to create one, and why would somebody be hesitant?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to get a little bit philosophical probably, which is not the usual manner for the Indy Senior Living series. I think there's so much good practical advice on how to take care of things, but at the end of the day, you want to have these practical things all taken care of, because what really matters is your relationships with other people, your family, your experiences. And so a legacy video is a way to just have a practical, I mean, it is a practical thing that you can do. It is something that you can pass down to your family. I know when I was younger, I wasn't super interested in my grandparents' life. And then as I got older, I started to want to go back to those things and kind of figure out where I come from. And by the time that, I got to that point, several of my grandparents had already passed away. And it's funny because a lot of the time when I tell people what I do, I get almost always the same reaction, which is, oh, I wish I had that for my grandma or my grandpa. They had so many good stories. I wish I could hear their voice one more time and just connect with them in that way. So I think even if it's something that you think people might not be interested in, I just want to let you know that's by far the most common response I get to telling people what I do.
Yeah, I think that's true. You talked about like when you were little, you weren't too interested, but as we get older, you start to be more interested in the stories, or maybe where you came from, or older pictures. And that clip that you played, I know that wasn't the whole video for the sake of time. So we have a question in the chat box, and then also I wanted to sort of add to that. What is the typical length of the video, and then maybe a range for the fee of the video?
Mm-hmm. So usually when I sit down to interview people, it's about an hour and a half interview, but then I edit that down into just 30 minutes. And it's a flat fee. It's $700 for a legacy video. It took me a couple of weeks to really go through all the footage and get all the best parts. And I guess another question you'd ask is, what if someone is hesitant? I know a lot of people are camera shy, and usually when I sit down with them at first, they're a little bit nervous, but I'm also camera shy, so you're in good company. You're not gonna feel, the process is that we just sort of sit down, we get comfortable, we have a conversation, and then anything that you say that you're not happy with, you can just say, I don't want that to go in the video. Maybe I didn't say that the way that I meant to. Let me say it again. None of that will end up in the final video. So it's very relaxed conversation. And, we usually start off as strangers, but we end up as friends. I love everybody that I've ever done a video with. I love hearing their lives. It's one of the reasons that I started this company, is because I just wanted to be that person that got to hear, hundreds of years of experience, stories, wisdom. And I thought maybe if I gathered all that up, I could maybe arrive a little bit earlier in life. But I don't know that it's worked, but it has been, even for me, to hear strangers talk about their experiences, and especially heartaches that have happened decades ago, and how they were able to overcome those things, and the good things that came out of their experiences. They have been so valuable for me in being a comfort to me during hard times in my life. And so I think if it's having that much of an impact on me, think about how it's going to impact your own family members, your children, your grandchildren, to hear somebody has been through hard things before. This is how they dealt with it. And it just gives, and when it's your own family, it gives such a bigger context for your life. Some stories can be told in a couple, some stories unfold over the course of a few minutes or days, some over a lifetime. But then I think some stories unfold over the course of generations, and what is to have a video, to have those reflections of someone in your family talking about their story. It just sort of helps people understand where they fit in this long conversation that happens. If you want to think of it as like God working over multiple generations, and just work. Sometimes things just work in a much slower way than we want, but to see it happen over the course from your grandma to your mother to you, it's just so powerful. I got really philosophical, sorry.
That's really good. In fact, I had not seen Lois's legacy video. I know that you did a video testimonial with Lois for me that I could use for marketing. She was so kind to do that for me. And I can attest, number one, that you're a perfectionist with these videos. They're real. I mean, she gets conversational, she gets comfortable, and you can tell that you're pulling out important information from her. But yeah, just in watching her video, and I know her, she's not my family member, but when she talked about that bike, you know, somebody stole my bike too when I was little. Didn't unwrap that way. My mom actually broke back in and got the bike. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I love the stories. And that's one of my favorite things about working with seniors and helping them downsize is the stories. So you probably have a great time doing the videos and hearing the stories. Imagine the impact that it actually has on the family members and other loved ones watching those videos back. So
yeah, and I've had the opportunity to actually sit down with one of the people that did a video with their family. I got to see them, their faces light up as they were hearing different stories. And then afterwards, it just like brought up so many good conversations. Like, I didn't know my uncle got taken in by the police. You never told us that story. And so just like so many good conversations can come out of just watching that together. So it's a fun thing to do. It might sound daunting to some people, but it is, I think, a really fun thing to do. And then it's a fun thing to share with your family. And then it's so comforting to when we do pass away, to have that for them to remember us. I know a lot of people say they forget the sound of a loved one's voice. It's one of the first things that they forget. So to have that, to see them speaking. And in the video, you can leave messages, final messages that can be played at your funeral or your service. It's just, I get so excited about it. It's really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I can tell. I know that you're passionate about what you do. I just looked at the clock. It's already 11:28. I can't believe that. One quick thing, the last part of your series of questions. When is the best time to create a legacy video? I want to get to that now before we start to wrap up.
So I think the best time is either now, or if you're the oldest in your generation. So if you have parents that are alive and they're still mentally sharp, then get a video of them. If you're the oldest and you're mentally sharp, it's a perfect time to do it. It really can't be too early, because your memories are not going to get any clearer. You're probably not going to be any happier with the way you look in front of the camera as time goes on. By all means, if your parents are still alive and sharp, then get them on camera first. But then really now is the best time, because you don't really know how life's going to unfold. And if you have something to say, it's the time to say it.
I agree. I think all of us are beginning to become comfortable on camera because we've had to. So I think, if anything, maybe this has opened up an opportunity for you while you're just like, it is what it is. Let's just do it. So Misty's contact information is in the attendee packet that was emailed. And I also put a link in the chat, but do you want to just throw your contact information in there real quick, and then reach out to me, and I can pass along Misty's information and our other panelists, Kate and Jeff. I also posted a link to the feedback form in the chat box. You can click on that and fill out the feedback form to be entered into the drawing that we have. And I think that's it. We're wrapping it up. Are there any last questions? Raise your hand or post in the chat. Misty put her contact information in there. I'm not seeing any questions. We're right at 11:30, and I really want to be respectful of everyone's time. I posted our slideshow up there again because I wanted to show our sponsors again. Thank you again. I know it's showing just as a PowerPoint because I don't want to figure out how to get back there, but thank you again to our sponsors. And thank you all for showing up and sharing this event with everyone. We're on again next month on Zoom. And we will be here indefinitely, but I think we're learning how to make it a better experience for everyone each month. And so we're working hard on that. And I thank you guys all for being patient and for showing up. So if there are no more last questions, we can end this video. Again, if you missed something, we're going to repost the video on our websites and our social media outlets too. I don't see any more questions. I don't see anybody jumping up and down trying to get my attention. Yeah. I don't see your link for feedback yet. Okay. I'll post it again. Oh, Michelle did. Did you do that, Michelle? Thank you. Okay. Hang in there, guys. I know that this video Zooming thing is really sucky, especially now that kids are going back to school and everybody's Zooming. But I really miss everybody, and I look forward to one day seeing you guys in person. For now, we'll be on Zoom. So I plan to see you all back here next month. It's September, I don't know, 13th, I think. Is that right, Michelle? The event. It's the second Thursday of the month. And I think next month we're talking about 55 and over living environments. So
September 10th.
Oh, September 10th. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys. I miss you all. Have a good afternoon.